Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to demystify the absolute bedrock of our entire digital world, and that is data. We interact with it constantly, right? I mean, before you even pour your morning coffee, data has already curated your newsfeed, routed your commute to avoid that awful traffic, and targeted highly specific ads right to your phone. But how often do we actually stop to think about what this invisible force is, how it systematically operates behind the scenes, and how it shapes almost every single aspect of our hyper-connected lives? Here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to define what data actually is, look at its real-world impact, check out the different flavors it comes in, learn how to wrangle the chaos, and finally, figure out how to represent it clearly.
So let's dive right into our first building block and start with the absolute basics. What is data?
We hear this tech buzzword literally every single day. It completely permeates our news cycles, it's the foundation of modern advertising, and it is the absolute core of our society. But what does data actually mean in reality, once we strip away all that complex Silicon Valley jargon?
Well, the absolute most crucial thing to understand is the profound difference between raw facts and processed information. Data generally starts its life as raw, unorganized, and honestly pretty chaotic facts. Think about a massive, unsorted list of books in a library, the sheer number of friends you have on a social network, or your raw numerical marks on a math test. On their own, in a vacuum, these isolated figures don't really tell us much of anything. But when these chaotic facts are meticulously organized, contextualized, and processed, we get this incredible aha moment. They transform into clear, useful information. And it's this processed information that actively drives us to make smart, informed decisions. And you actually rely on this transformation every single day. Think about a standard school report card. It compiles seemingly random daily attendance records and isolated test scores into a highly clear, actionable summary of a student's overall performance. Suddenly, teachers can see exactly where a student excels or where they might be struggling. Or consider your weather app. It continuously collects massive, overwhelming amounts of raw meteorological data from satellites just to tell you in one simple little icon whether or not you need to grab an umbrella before you head out the door.
Now that we know what it is, why should you actually care about it on a larger scale?
Data isn't just a bunch of boring numbers sitting passively on a screen. It actively powers massive real-world operations across 5 major areas. First, it completely removes human guesswork to drive solid decision-making. It drives sustainable business growth. It fuels groundbreaking scientific research. It significantly enhances our global cybersecurity. And finally, it creates those highly personalized user experiences we all love, like your streaming app flawlessly recommending your new favorite song, or a retail site anticipating exactly what you want to buy.
What's really fascinating is how data acts like a double-edged sword. It's an engine for incredible growth, but also an essential protective shield. On the growth side, store owners rigorously study sales records to identify emerging trends. By acting on this, they figure out exactly what to stock, minimizing losses and maximizing profits. On the protection side, advanced cybersecurity systems constantly analyze massive sets of login info and global access patterns. They study this historical data to spot highly unusual activities in real time, mathematically predicting and stopping malicious threats before they even happen.
But its impact goes way beyond commerce and security. As you can see here, without gathering trustworthy facts to rigorously test assumptions, human progress across scientific fields would literally freeze. Leading researchers depend entirely on meticulously gathered data to push the boundaries of modern medicine, explore deep space, and understand our changing environment. Without it, the engine of human innovation just stops.
So we understand its tremendous power, but what are the actual types of data? What does it look like when we bring it back down to Earth? First up, we have numerical data. This consists exclusively of numbers and values, things you can physically count or precisely measure, exactly like those magnetic numbers on a fridge. Whether it's counting inventory in a warehouse, measuring the exact length of a shipping box, or doing complex algebra on a whiteboard, numerical data is the absolute bedrock of all quantitative measurement.
Then we have text data. This is composed entirely of letters, words, and structured sentences. Text data translates abstract concepts into universally understood communication. It could be something as simple as written names on a formal scroll, a detailed mailing address, or even the very script I am speaking from right now. It is the fundamental way we meticulously record human language.
Next is image data. This is where pictures, technical drawings, or high-res photos make complex information instantly visible and intuitively easy to understand.
We're talking about a framed historical illustration, a cherished digital photo of your dog, or even those highly expressive emojis on your phone that convey immediate emotion in a rapid-fire text chat.
And it gets even more dynamic from there. We also have video data, which allows us to capture complex actions and understand unfolding events in continuous motion, like watching a movie, reviewing CCTV security footage, or jumping on a video call with colleagues across the globe. Finally, sound data tells us exactly what something sounds like. It digitizes everything from recorded voice waveforms and music all the way to the distinct sound of a school bell ringing at the end of the day. Having all these rich, incredibly diverse flavors of data is absolutely fantastic. But how do we successfully collect and organize it all without completely losing our minds? Let's talk about wrangling the chaos.
Well, before we can organize anything, we actually have to collect it. We gather this raw information directly from various sources. We might ask people exhaustive questions through surveys, because, we all just love filling out a tedious 20-page questionnaire, right? We might read established facts in academic books, run targeted internet searches, or use precise instruments to observe and measure phenomena, like checking a thermometer daily to chart biological growth.
But once we actually collect all this diverse information, we can rapidly run into a highly frustrating issue. Imagine looking at your computer desktop and seeing 50 random, entirely unorganized images scattered everywhere. Now imagine you need to find just one specific, critically important file for an urgent project that is due in exactly 5 minutes. That is a total nightmare scenario. The sheer panic of frantically clicking through vaguely named files is something I think we all know a little too well.
To entirely prevent that kind of digital chaos, we absolutely must systematically organize our data using 4 mandatory steps. First up is classification, logically grouping similar kinds of data together. Second is structuring, carefully arranging that classified data into separate hierarchical folders or a strict tabular format. Third is labeling, actually taking the time to give your files clear, highly descriptive names so you know what they are. And finally, storage, saving this beautifully organized data securely in appropriate, easily accessible systems. By rigorously classifying and labeling files into clear structures, like moving from a general school folder down to science and finally to a clearly named solar system diagram PDF, we immediately solve that 50-image desktop problem. Consistently following these 4 vital steps avoids disastrous data loss, makes finding your files virtually instant, and keeps your digital life perfectly ordered and stress-free. Okay, so your data is stored and organized, but we have one final, crucial step: representing that data clearly. Because, let's be real, raw, perfectly organized data is still completely useless if the actual presentation of it is unreadable. Representation takes those properly stored files and expertly translates them into intuitive visual formats where exact numbers and emerging trends can truly shine. By utilizing crisp bar charts, intuitive pictograms, or highly structured tables, we provide accurate visual comparisons. These tools map directly to how the human brain instinctively processes information, making incredibly complex, multi-layered data remarkably easy to understand at just a passing glance. Let's ground this with a highly relatable example, a family kitchen menu. Imagine you have a big family, and everyone has vastly conflicting food and drink preferences. The person cooking is getting completely overwhelmed by all the verbal requests. But by taking a moment to put these complex meal details into a simple, structured table, organizing food and drink into clear columns, and giving each family member their own row, the culinary chaos instantly vanishes. Grandfather's soft chapatis and warm milk, grandmother's Ch-2 and tea, and father's rice and buttermilk are all clearly visually separated. When critical details matter, a well-structured table makes it instantly actionable. Data is absolutely everywhere, from the vast server farms predicting global weather patterns, right down to the handwritten dietary menu in your own kitchen. So the next time you're faced with a messy, chaotic pile of seemingly unrelated information, ask yourself, how will you classify, organize, and represent it to finally find ultimate clarity?